The Fujifilm X-T30 offers great features, a great price, but has some flaws. Chris here from Videomaker, and in this video we're going hands-on with the Fujifilm X-T30. With the goal of keeping this video to a reasonable length, we had to cut some of the content. To read all of our results from our testing with more depth, go to videomaker.com and read the whole review there. The X-T30 has a long list of features, making its $900 price tag exciting. Because of its APS-C size sensor and Fujifilm's commitment to it, there's a large selection of affordable prime and zoom lenses for it. For the money, the X-T30 has best-in-class internal capture of DCI 4K up to 2997 at 200 megabits per second. Add in that its HDMI can output DCI 4K in 10-bit with 422 color space. It can even shoot in log, with Fujifilm's F-Log allowing it to be captured internally or externally via HDMI. Plus, its video autofocus includes eye tracking that works pretty well. It's hard to believe that we're still talking about a $900 camera. However, the camera doesn't come without flaws. It has an internal record limit time of 10 minutes in 4K and 15 minutes in HD, and it doesn't have a headphone jack, though you can use the USB port with an adapter to monitor the audio. Add in that it's not weather sealed and the audio jack is smaller than typical with an odd 2.5mm size, not the 3.5mm like most use. Overall though, the camera's offerings make it a very big contender for those with a modest budget. If you are just starting out in filmmaking, it would make a great starter camera. The 3-inch 1.04 million dot monitor is acceptable for the price of this camera. The monitor doesn't offer the third articulation that allowed for angled vertical shooting in the X-T3, but as a video shooter, it's not going to be missed by many. When shooting in full sun, we set the brightness of the screen to +5. That brightened up the screen just enough to be usable. We don't like the location of the Q button. If you don't know what the Q button is, it pulls up the quick menu of the camera. Although the Q button is very helpful for fast access to many functions that would be otherwise hidden in a menu, it's just located in a bad spot. We are constantly pressing it by accident. The X-T30 has all of the typical shot assist a video shooter needs. Peaking, zebras, focus zoom, and histogram. All are very usable. The camera offers one SD card slot. If you require two, you will need to up your budget because one is all you get at this price. Additionally, the camera doesn't require the fastest, newest media, so media will be affordable. We used both the 64GB Fujifilm Elite Performance SD-XC and the 64GB Sony SD-XC. Shooting at the top bitrate of 200 megabits per second, the camera captures 1.5 gigabytes of data every minute. This gives a 64GB card about 42.5 minutes of record time. Fujifilm put a 2.5mm jack on the X-T30. We have more than a dozen different camera-mounted microphones here at Videomaker, and none of them have a 2.5mm cable. They all have a 3.5mm, the standard for on-camera microphones. A 2.5mm converter to 3.5mm will set you back $4 on Amazon. You can capture and adjust separately the gain for the on-camera mic and the external one. Lastly, although it doesn't have a headphone jack, for as little as $10, you can get a dongle that can be plugged in to the USB-C port with a 3.5mm headphone jack out. We just wish they included adapters with the camera. You would think that they would be cheap enough to supply just in the box. The X-T30 has 3 bitrate options, 50 megabit, 100 megabit, and 200 megabits, though not all resolutions offer all of the bit rates. HD shooting can shoot all 3. 4K just doesn't offer the lowest, 50 megabits. Internal capture is 8-bit with 420 color space. External output is 10-bit with 422 color space up to DCI 4K 2997. The camera can shoot up to 120 frames per second in HD using high speed mode, but no audio is captured. Additionally, it takes that 120 frames and conforms it down to 23976 if you want 5 times slow-mo, and others if you want less. Fujifilm is known for film emulation. Unlike the picture profiles of other cameras offered, Fujifilm's film emulation is much more usable and in some cases preferable to a normal look. The X-T30 can also shoot F-Log internally or externally in all of its resolutions and frame rates, even when shooting at 120 frames per second. The The camera doesn't have a huge dynamic range. When shooting a scene with full sun and full shade, we had to choose to expose for the bright or for the dark. However, when switched to shooting an f-log, we were able to capture enough information in the shadows and pull them up in post. This means you can expose for the highlights and bump up the shadows in post. Fujifilm's f-log does a great job of giving more dynamic range to a shot. The X-T30 offers very little rolling shutter. This is true for 4K as much as it is for HD. We shot on 4 native X-mount lenses. Fujifilm has stated that they are committed to the APS-C sensor size, so they have an extensive line of lenses to choose from. We shot the XF 35mm f2 RWR, the XF50 f2 RWR, the XF 10 to 24mm f4R OIS, and the XC 16 to 50 f3.5 to f5.6 OIS2. When on a tripod, we chose to shoot mostly with the 35 and the 50mm. At $400 for the 35mm and $450 for the 50, neither of them have optical image stabilization, but offer a beautiful picture and fit nicely with the feel of the X-T30. The two zooms couldn't be further from each other. The 10 to 24mm, although it's f4, is a great focal length for this camera when shooting from the hip. It has optical image stabilization, but costs $1,000. Not a huge price for a lens, but is more expensive than the body itself. The 16 to 35 is only $200, has optical image stabilization, but has a variable aperture across the zoom of the lens. When shooting a variable aperture lens, we recommend that you use the larger f number so that the exposure won't change regardless of your field of view. Our first autofocus test was to evaluate the ability of the Area AF in APS-C mode to keep focus on one subject. We lined up 3 Lego figures, so as one moved out of the AF area, another would come in. It worked a few times flawlessly, and a few times it hunted when changing to the next figure, although the hunting was very quick, but it was there nonetheless. To test eye tracking AF, we placed a laptop with Weird Al Yankovic's face 5 feet away from toys in the foreground. Testing eye tracking, left eye priority, the camera did a great job of keeping our subject in focus. We also did the same test with 2 faces in the scene. Still 2 to 3 feet apart, the camera was able to stay with the primary face until we stopped moving and it changed focus to the other face without being prompted to do so. Overall though, it kept focus well. Continuing to test eye tracking AF, we set up a camera on a tripod and put our subject, myself, 24 feet away. I began to walk towards the camera and around 12 to 15 feet away, it picked up my face. We found that when we shot an f-log, the camera could see more of the face because of the increased dynamic range. This made the eye tracking function work better and we got better results. When I got close to the camera so that my forehead hit the top of the frame and my chin to the bottom, the camera would hunt focusing on the background and then find my face. Additionally, beware of tracking eyes wearing glasses. When wearing glasses, the camera performed much worse than when I was without. Our low light test is to see at what ISO noise enters the picture, and at what ISO should you not shoot in if you want a professional result. In 4K, noise starts around ISO 800, but only becomes an issue at ISO 6400. For a professional result, we would stay at below ISO 6400, though up to 12,800 could be used because the noise does not color shift until 25,600. The battery life and overheating tests are to show how long the camera would last when it's at its heaviest use. The monitor was on and close to the body of the camera during the duration of the test. The monitor was set at its brightest setting and the camera had boost performance on. The autofocus was on in continuous mode with eye tracking turned on. We also set the camera to not sleep when not in use. Shooting in DCI 4K at the highest bitrate of 200 megabits per second, the camera was inside, out of direct sunlight, with inside temperature of 76 degrees Fahrenheit. We had to swap out the SD card at 42 minutes of recording because the 64GB card was full. We saw 54 minutes of recording time before the camera overheated, though the battery died only 2 minutes of use later. The overheating is unfortunate, though it didn't cause much performance loss because the camera would have needed a battery around this time. There are 2 cameras you should look at if you're considering an APS-C sensor mirrorless camera, the Sony a6400 and the Canon M50. Starting with the M50, it's $220 cheaper than both the a6400 and the X-T30, with a price of $680. It has a 24 megapixel sensor and can shoot up to UHD 4K at 23,976 frames per second. It has a fully articulating touchscreen that offers 2.3 million dots and can shoot up to 120 frames per second, but only in 720 HD. It has Canon's dual pixel autofocus and offers internal electronic image stabilization. Next up is the Sony a6400. At $900, it's the same price as the X-T30 and also offers eye tracking AF. The monitor on the A6400 can flip up for viewing yourself during a vlog or when shooting a selfie. The monitor is the same resolution as the X-T30, but it has no preset record limit time. So if you have a big card, it will keep rolling. The big drawback on the Sony is that you're limited to 8-bit internally or externally. Additionally, it does not offer a headphone jack. The A6400 has 2 flavors of log, S-Log2 and S-Log3, and also shoots up to 120 frames per second in full HD. The Fujifilm X-T30 is a formidable camera with some great features, but also offer a few quirky and unfortunate ones as well. From the top, we love that F-Log can be captured in all resolutions and frame rates. We also love that you can capture 10-bit out the HDMI. Fujifilm gives the ability to use a dongle to monitor with headphones, though we wish they would have included the dongle with the camera. We don't love the limited monitor articulation, the record limit time, and the lack of image stabilization outside of a lens with OIS. If you can live with the record limit time or use an external recorder, this camera cannot be beat for $900. However, if you need longer than 10 minutes, this camera is not for you. We love the image from the camera, the added dynamic range from the F-Log, and its big and affordable lens selection. If you are in need of an APS-C sensor mirrorless camera, you need to consider the Fujifilm X-T30. I've been Chris from Videomaker, and until next time, keep doing the hard work that you do. Bye-bye. In 2019, we're hosting a series of meetups called Videomaker IRL around the country. These free events are a great opportunity to network with local videographers, filmmakers, creative professionals, hiring managers, and potential collaborators. Our next events, Chicago and LA. Visit videomakerevents.com to RSVP. We're adding more dates all of the time, so check back even if you're watching this after 2019, or if I didn't just mention your city. Hope to see you there.